O'Halloran is here.
This meeting of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Vice President Baez.
Present.
Director Herndon.
Present.
Director O'Halloran.
Present.
Director Peterson.
Present.
Director Phillips.
Present.
Director Seamson.
Present.
Director Taylor.
Present.
Director Woodward.
Here.
Chair Miller.
Here.
We have 9 present.
I will now ask the Secretary to lead us in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so, and ask that those who do not wish to participate please remain silent. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas noches. Esta junta será transmitida en español para las personas que requieran interpretación al español. Si requiere interpretación, por favor pídanos un auricular para poder dárselo y escuchar la junta en español. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Before we move to our agenda, I ask that we share in a moment of silence to commemorate the passing of members of our family. First, Mildred Harpole, reading specialist and community leader at MPS. Russ Keska, a retired teacher who worked at Fritchie Middle School. Mavis Maxine Drew, a retired worker assistant. Latanya Rushing, a secretary at Roosevelt Middle School. Mary Fisher Morris, a retired teacher. Peg Randall Gardner, a teacher at Milwaukee School of Languages. Lauren Skybe, a former MPS teacher. And Dion Virgil, a 6th grade student at Ideal. Could we have a moment of silence, please? Thank you. Each month, the Board of School Directors accepts the public's input, both at the committee meetings and through correspondence submitted to the Office of Board Governance, as this is the regular monthly meeting of the board. However, in accordance with board rules, the board will not be taking any public testimony on any items during tonight's meeting. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictates that all comments should be directed to the chair. Also, any questions or requests, including those from the public, board members, or the administration, are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. Please be respectful of the democratic process adhered to by the board for the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting. Harassment or intimidating tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone persistent in disrupting this process will be asked to leave or will be escorted from the meeting and not allowed to return. Also, no one other than the members of the board, the staff of the Superintendent's Office, the Office of Board Governance, and the Office of Accountability and Efficiency, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after meetings of the board and its committees. For our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting esbmilwaukee.k12.wi.us. Now let's begin. Madam Secretary, what is our first item of business?
The first item on tonight's agenda is the awards and commendations, the Excellence in Education Award.
Each month, the Board of School Directors recognizes an outstanding school student, staff member, parent, or community member for a display of excellence, achievement, and innovation that may serve as an example to our school district and the entire Milwaukee community. This month, the Milwaukee Board of School Directors is pleased to posthumously present the Excellence in Education Award to Lawrence Larry J. O'Neill. Would his family please come forward to the stage? Thank you. Lawrence J. O'Neill served the MPS family as a dedicated member of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors for 28 years after being elected in 1977. It was when his children began school that he first sought a position on the MPS board. He ran successfully in 7 elections and remained a strong advocate for students throughout his tenure on the board. During his longstanding tenure on the board, Larry O'Neill made many contributions to support Milwaukee Public Schools as a place where students and staff engage in meaningful learning on a daily basis. These contributions have and will continue to impact countless MPS students. In addition to his 28 years of public service as an MPS board member, Larry O'Neill was active member of the community. He sang in St. Rita's Church Choir as a tenor and was also an usher. He was a member of the American Legion Post 537 and a volunteer transport driver for the Milwaukee VA Medical Center. He loved nature, world history, and the Milwaukee Brewers. Larry O'Neill was a dedicated family man to his wife Bernice and daughters Deborah, Diane, Peggy, Mary Lynn, and Maureen. The Milwaukee Board of School Directors posthumously recognizes and honors Lawrence Larry J. O'Neill for his dedication, outstanding leadership, and commitment to excellence on behalf of the students of the Milwaukee Public Schools. Will the superintendent please do the honors? And if we could, if members of Mr. O'Neill's family would like to say a few words.
Superintendent Posley, President Miller, and board members, my name is Peggy O'Neill. My sister Debbie Hyde. We are graduates of, and proud graduates of Milwaukee Hamilton High School. All of Larry O'Neill's daughters, all 5 daughters, attended MPS schools and graduated from Milwaukee Hamilton. His grandsons attended Milwaukee McDowell Montessori grade school and are graduates. So we're all proud MPS students. My dad would be proud to receive this as his life was excellence towards family, towards his country, church, and education. We, the children and grandchildren, are proud of him, and the larger community benefited from the ripples of his devotion to education, still being felt today. So we thank you for this honor, honoring him today.
Thank you. And any other, do any board members wish to make comments? Director Taylor.
Oh, no, just saying thank you for coming out. And
We remember as small children, my father would always dress his suits and put his tie on and attend these meetings, and so we asked the grandsons to, in his honor, also wear their suits.
Thank you. Dr. Posley, did you want to? Oh, I'm sorry, Director Phillips, yes.
Thank you. It's amazing to hear about the legacy of your dad and the nearly 3 decades he spent here trying to do what's best for kids. And I wanted to make sure that we thanked you for daughters for, sharing your father with the community, it sounds like, for your entire lives. And hopefully that you recognize that you were part of that service, because that was a sacrifice for you too. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I would just like to thank you for your father's dedication to MPS. And he put, did I hear it right, 27 years? 28
Yes,
on the board.
28.
That's just really, really amazing.
And we went door-to-door campaigning for him at every single election. We know, yes.
Of course, I hope your children get a chance to do that at some
Thank
point. Thank you.
Director Miller,
Oh, Director Bias.
I met Director O'Neill. I was involved on the outside. I used to appear before this board since 1972, so I'm old enough to remember him and his involvement, and particularly some of the issues that we brought before this board, on issues generally of equity. He was an honorable man. He was always willing and able to go off the record and sit down with us and talk about things and talk things through until we got to the right place in the right moment. So I want to thank you, because his contributions for people like me who happen to know him and have been involved with him at that time, were very remarkable and a very difficult time when Milwaukee was undergoing desegregation and all of those things. He was here all the time, participated in all the committees that were created as a function of that. So thank you for that, and thank the family for being here.
Thank you so much. So, if you could give them another hand, please.
They come around and shake hands with the board.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Secretary.
thank you. I would like to take a moment of a personal privilege. I had an opportunity to work with Director O'Neill, and I can tell you, he always came to the meetings early. He was always dressed in a suit, and his hair was perfect.
I remember him well.
And I just want to thank his family for the opportunity to be able to share his excellence in education. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Mann. All right, as they're leaving the stage, if we could give them one more hand, please. Wonderful family. Madam Secretary, what's the next item of business?
The next item is action on the minutes of the October 2019 special and regular meetings of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
Do any board members have corrections to the minutes? Not seeing any. There are no objections. The minutes are approved as amended.
So
Madam-
noted.
Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the superintendent?
Yes, Mr. President, we do have one communication from the superintendent, and that is the monthly report from the superintendent of schools. This is an informational item, and no action is required.
Dr. Posley.
Good evening, President Miller and members of the board. Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. There are many wonderful accomplishments to celebrate Milwaukee Public Schools in my report that are before you. It is with great pride in our MPS community that I share the following video for a recap of those wonderful events and accomplishments that make MPS proud. However, we have truly saved the best for last. We are going to hear from young people from Allen Field. There were many special events, activities, and learning opportunities that took place in Milwaukee Public Schools to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. This evening, we are honored to have in our presence students from Allen Field School, all along with their principal, Mr. Flintz Blandon, as well as their teacher, Ms. Garcia. They will be sharing with us some of the highlights from their celebration of the Hispanic Heritage Month at Allen Field. I would like to also welcome all of the Allen Field School community with us this evening as we move forward with our families, our friends, and staff in the audience. If you would please stand at this time and be recognized with a round of applause. Thank you for being here. And at this time, I would ask the principal, Mr. Blandon, to provide us with some introductory comments, and they will begin the presentation, and after which Mr. Blandon will pass it on to three fine scholars from Allen Field School. They can't wait. They have been testing the mic, doing mic checks, and they're ready to go. Mr. Blandon.
Okay. Gracias. Thank you, President Miller, members of the board, and thank you, Superintendent Dr. Posley. My name is Fritz Blandon, and I'm the proud principal of Bilingual Elementary School, Allen Field. Today is my honor to present to you three of my very talented second grade students, bilingual second grade students, who will share with you the high level of culturally and personally relevant Dias de los Muertos work in connection to our National Hispanic Heritage Month. I would also like to present to you my talented, motivated, and eager first-year teacher, Ms. Alondra Garcia, who in 3 short months has demonstrated a passion, a commitment to excellence, and advocacy for our children. Our community and district is fortunate to have such a bright young professional in our system. I present to you Ms. Alondra Garcia.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor being here. Oh my God. Thank you, President Miller, members of the board, and Dr. Posley. Thank you for letting me sit on your chair. It is amazing. I mean, for me, it's an honor, first of all, being here, first-year teacher. I love it so far. But it's not about me. It's more about the kids and what they learned this month, especially just Hispanic Heritage Month. It was incredible. We were able to do a great project based on Dia de los Muertos, and they're going to talk a little bit more about it. Anthony? Yep.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia, President Miller, my members of the board, me, and Dr. Posley. My name is Anthony Molina. I am a second grader student at Allen Field. I am really excited to be here at the board meeting to share some information about how we celebrate History Month at our school. The biggest celebration we learned of was the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos. We celebrate during November 1st and 2nd. It was beautiful life that our loved ones who passed away had to build
An altar.
una ofrenda. A memory of them. We remember all the good things they did in life, the memories we had with them, and the love we have for each other. It is not the time to be sad, but the time to be happy, because that is what they want to remember. It is like the movie Coco, which we watch in classes because things remember to his abuela Coca. Hope that she will remember her dad and her love, who will, with the song they will always sing together. Thank you for letting me share with your highlights of Hispanic Heritage Month at Allen Field. Thank you. I do it. God.
They can barely reach.
Aquí te voy a ayudar. Aquí te voy a ayudar. Un momento. All right. Un momentito. ¿Listo?
Bueno.
Gracias. All right. Ready? There you go, buddy.
Hola,
Hola.
presidente Miller, miembros del Consejo y doctor Posley. Mi nombre es David Golpe y soy un estudiante en el segundo grado en la escuela Allen Field. Estoy feliz de compartir con ustedes algunas de las cosas que hicimos en mi escuela este año para celebrar el mes de la herencia hispana en Allen Field. Para mí no fue nada fácil hacer la ofrenda que hice. Mi mamá me tenía que ayudar mucho. Yo sé que ya tengo 7 años y soy un niño grande, pero todavía tengo mucho que aprender. Estoy tan feliz que mi mamá me ayudó porque sin su ayuda no lo iba a poder hacer. Ella me compró unas flores amarillas para dárselas a Miss García y las pusiera en el altar con el resto de las ofrendas que hicieron mis amigos. Después de ver todas las ofrendas juntas, me sentí tan orgulloso por todo el esfuerzo que mi mamá, mis amigos y yo hicimos en crear algo tan maravilloso para nuestros ancestros. Nunca se me va a olvidar. Gracias por escucharme. Y en este momento le pediré a mi compañero de clase, Christopher, que hable.
¿Estás bien? ¿Puedes llegar? Voy a ayudarte. ¿Puedes llegar o necesitas que te ayude? ¿Quieres que te ayude? Ok, un momento. Ok. Tienes que hablar aquí, ¿ok?
Hola, presidente Miller, Hola, presidente Miller, miembros del Consejo y doctor Posley. Mi nombre es Christopher Placencia y soy un estudiante en el segundo grado en la escuela Allenfield. Hicimos varias cosas interesantes este año en mi escuela en celebración del mes de la herencia hispana. Ahora voy a compartir con todos ustedes algunas de las cosas que hicimos. Lo que a mí me encantó fue hacer mi mariposa monarca. Aprendimos que las mariposas monarcas vuelan a México desde los Estados Unidos y Canadá antes del 1 de noviembre para protegerse del invierno. Según las creencias, las mariposas monarcas son las almas de nuestros queridos que regresan a visitarnos. Fue tan bonito ver todas las mariposas juntas y unidas en nuestra ofrenda. Me hizo sentir tan feliz en saber que yo pude ser parte de esta increíble experiencia con mis compañeros de clase y mi maestra, Miss García. Aprendí tanto sobre mi cultura, mi familia y quién soy yo como persona. Muchas gracias por darme el placer de compartir esta noche con todos ustedes. Y ahora le voy a preguntar a Mr. Blandón que concluye en nuestra presentación.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Dr. Posey, would you like to comment, please?
Our young people are truly amazing, and we are open to answer any questions that you may have. They are ready, right? All right. Sit-
All right, board members, who would like to ask some, who wants to start? Let me put it that way. Director Baez. Director Baez, Director
Yes.
Peterson.
I want to say something in Spanish. I'm going to take advantage of this. Muchísimas gracias, Anthony, David, Christopher. Es un placer tenerlos ustedes aquí esta noche. Es fabuloso que ustedes puedan estar aquí con nosotros y compartir las bellas palabras de ustedes. Le agradecemos muchísimo que puedan venir aquí y contar sus historias y que sigan en el camino de ser bilingües en este país. I want to thank Allen Field. Allen Field School is one of the schools in District 6, my district. But you should know, as board members and others in the audience, Allen Field has been a bilingual school for about 50 years. 50 years. It was one of the first schools that started the bilingual program in Milwaukee. First it started at View, Allen Field, the old Kosciuszko, and South Division. Those were the 4 schools that were involved at that time. And those schools continue to have very wonderful bilingual programs, as you notice here tonight. It is fantastic that children in Milwaukee have had the opportunity to sustain their language where they learn English, and that they will continue to freely speak before us, before the world, in a bilingual manner. In many, many other states, they will not be able to do that. In Milwaukee, they can, because we value the idea of children being bilingual and multilingual whenever they can. And so I want to thank you because this school has maintained bilingual education during all these years. I mean, 50 years is a lot. It had one of the first bilingual gifted programs in the country was at Allen Field. There are people that used to be teachers at Allen Field that later became known judges and people that were elaborate teaching at universities and other places around the country. So Allen Field has always been the kind of place that has grown great talent from young people like you, como ustedes, to people who are directors, principals, teachers, and it's the kind of place that we should all be proud about because it tells us that this can work and that when we feel free to be able to participate in whatever language we can, as we continue to learn English, it's a great thing. It's a fabulous thing. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you very much for being here. Gracias por venir. What is your favorite subject in school? Each one of you would like you to answer.
When we did the butterflies.
Your favorite subject. ¿Qué le gusta estudiar en la escuela?
Math.
Okay.
¿Qué le gusta estudiar?
Social studies.
All right.
Math.
Gracias.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Anthony, David, and Christopher, when you came out, what did I ask you to do? Can you remember? Can't remember?
No.
Okay, well, I asked you to do a good job, and you did a very good job, and I'm proud of you. And I want you to know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Director Simpson.
Just first of all, thank you so much for sharing your students with us, and teacher for doing such a great job. And Anthony, David, and Christopher, you're very brave for getting up on stage and speaking to all of us, and you did a wonderful job. So thank you so much, boys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Director Herndon.
Thank you. I am thoroughly enjoying hearing from you three young men. Congratulations, and looks like we've got a budding communications individual to move up. He likes the mic. And thanks to the teachers, and congratulations, Ms. Garcia.
Director O'Halloran.
Adidas.
I'll make it really quick because you've been here for so long. So thank you for coming. And I just wanted to say how impressed I am that you can read in English and Spanish. And that's something that not a lot of people can do. So you should be very proud of yourselves. Which do you think is easier? Do you like reading in English or do you like reading in Spanish?
I like doing both.
Both?
There we go.
Good. Yeah. That's impressive.
It's Spanish.
Spanish.
English.
All right. Well, thank you.
Welcome.
Just to add to what you said, Director Herndon, before the board showed up, they were up here, they loved the gavel. So we've got some leaders here. With that, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming forward. It's wonderful, wonderful. Come around and shake the hands of the board members, if you would, please. Everybody wants to shake your hands.
Okay.
All right, give them another hand as they do that, please.
Told you he likes that
Here, let's move this up. Thank you, sir. Good job. Muy bien.
Muy bien, Christopher.
Muy bien. Thank you. Gracias. Muy bien.
Muy bien.
Oh,
Muy bien.
you wanted to do it right now.
That's a lot.
Little kids like that.
Yeah, they're younger.
I love teaching.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, and one more hand as they're leaving the stage, please. Right. All right, Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the board clerk, chief officer of the Board of School, of the Office of Board Governance?
Yes, Mr. President, we do have our monthly legislative activities. Mr. Chris Thiel will be presenting those. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Mr. Thiel?
President Miller, members of the board, thank you, Chris Thiel. Thank you. President Miller, members of the board, Chris Thiel, Legislative Policy Manager for Milwaukee Public Schools. Just a quick update, and continuing on some of the discussion we've had over the course of the year. As we've discussed at the beginning of this year, the state issued its Blue Ribbon Commission report on K-12 education. A lot has happened this year, obviously the state budget and other things, but we're holding out hope that perhaps during this calendar year, we would see some of the top-line items moved into law that the legislature recommended. Specifically, the items relating to students with disabilities, English language learners, and assisting students who are economically disadvantaged. At this time, unfortunately, we will not see that happen in this calendar year. The last floor sessions of the Senate and Assembly have taken place. They are not due to go back to the floor until late January of 2020. And so those items, and as you recall, we hosted the first meeting of the Blue Ribbon Commission, and our many members of our community were actively involved in that, and it has a lot of fantastic recommendations, but at this time, unfortunately, they are not going to be passed into law, certainly this calendar year, and frankly, I don't really see a path forward for that to happen in this legislative session that will end in spring. So what you have before you is just kind of a reminder for the public and some numbers for the board about where we are in the discussion as we talk about both kind of equality as we have often in terms of revenue limits. But what this piece of information provides as well is the amount of assistance that the students in this district would have received if 3 items, which were more or less in the equity package of that report, would have become law. And the 3 items are funding for English language learners. The Blue Ribbon Commission recommended a weighting system that would allow us to count students in need in that area at 1.2 of an FTE, and if that were in fact in law, that would have provided an additional $18.5 million. Similarly, there's a 60% reimbursement that the governor had in his budget, and that was recommended in the Blue Ribbon Commission report. Had that been passed into law, that would have provided an additional roughly $64 million. And then there was an element in the Blue Ribbon Commission report that would have weighted both in terms of state aid, but crucially in terms of revenue limit for economically disadvantaged students. And I say crucially because it's that weighting on the revenue limit side that would have allowed actual spendable resources for school districts across the state. And had that come into law, MPS would have seen an additional $128 million in that area. So all told, those 3 pieces of that package would have provided $211 million, and that information is provided here kind of to reiterate the fact that we've studied this issue a lot in the state. The state superintendent was quoted in an article over the weekend where she said that we've done enough admiring of the problem, in her words. But as we have been updating you regularly on the progress of that report, unfortunately, as we close the year, we will not see that passed into law. So happy to answer any questions if you have them this evening.
All right, Director Peterson.
Just a comment. I'm sure many people saw an article in the newspaper this week about some discussions that the task force that we're hosting had on the amount of money that's necessary to meet a certain gold standard of education for our children, which is basically the national standards in various areas. If those things that Mr. Thiel just mentioned, we'd be a third of the way to that gold standard, and so we can see that no matter what happens in the future, we're going to have to really push the state legislature to do what's best for our kids.
Other comments? Dr. Halloran.
I want to thank you for providing these numbers because I think it helps us with context and just recognizing, like putting just real dollar amounts on the children in our surrounding areas are just valued more. They are just worth more to taxpayers than the children in our district. And I feel like if we had this additional, if we had the revenue limit raised, if we had this additional funding, I think we could really unlock the potential of every single one of our students. And I think every one of our children in the city of Milwaukee deserve this. So I think it's really helpful, and I've shared this information with people so that they can understand that, like, I mean, just simply put, our children get less. And I think that's a fact, and this helps prove that.
Thank you. Other comments by board members? All right. Not seeing any. Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the Office of Accountability and Efficiency?
There is one communication from the Office of Accountability and Efficiency. That is the monthly report with possible action on activities within the Office of Accountability and Efficiency. This is an informational item. Although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
President Miller, Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. So this month's report is before you. I'd just like to briefly highlight some work that we've completed with the Office of Finance that has automated some of the tasks associated with compiling the many hundreds of pages that they build when they publish the budget every time the proposed and the final adopted budget comes forward. And in our contract compliance service area, last month they held their annual fall job readiness training session for MPS high school students. And this is an event that improves their interviewing skills and introduces them to contractors and vendors for intern opportunities. I feel like I say this every time this year, but I feel very privileged to work for this board and in collaboration with this administration and this Office of Board Governance. And it's something for which myself and my team, we're truly thankful. I just want to say it as we enter the holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments by board members? Not seeing any. Madam Secretary, what's our next item of business?
The next item is action on the reports of the independent hearing officers of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors, student expulsions.
I will entertain a motion to accept, modify, or reject the reports of the independent hearing officers of the dates and times listed in our agenda.
I move to accept.
Director Peterson moves to accept. Do I have a second?
Second.
Director Simpson, seconded. Any comments, questions? Not seeing any. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On the motion to approve the reports of the independent hearing officers, Director Baez?
Aye.
Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran? Director Peterson?
Aye.
Director Phillips?
Aye.
Director Simpson?
Aye.
Director Taylor?
Aye.
Director Woodward?
Aye.
President Miller?
Aye.
That's 9 ayes, the motion passes.
We will now have the reports of the standing committees. Since public hearing was given at the committee meetings, the board, as is customary, will not be giving public hearings on these reports this evening. Madam Secretary, what is the first report?
The first report is that of the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel. Item 2, action on recommended administrative appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, salary increases and decreases, limited-term employment LTE contracts exceeding 60 days, has been forwarded to the board without recommendation. Item 7, action on professional services contracts, has been set aside at the request of President Miller. Item 9, report with possible action on Resolution 1920R-006 regarding the early retirement window, ERW, has been set aside at the request of Director Simpson.
Okay, do board members have any additional items to set aside? Not seeing any. Madam Secretary, what's the next report?
The next item is the report of the Committee on Legislation, Rules, and Policies.
Okay, no items of this report have been set aside for separate consideration. Do any board members wish to set any items aside? Not seeing any. Madam Secretary, what's the next report?
The next item is the report of the Committee on Parent and Community Engagement. No items of this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do board members wish to set any items aside? Not seeing any. What's the next report, Madam Secretary?
The next item is the report of the Committee on Strategic Planning and Budget.
No items of this report have been set aside for separate consideration. Do board members wish to set anything aside from this item? Not seeing any. Madam Secretary, what is the next report?
The next item is the report of the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation. Item 2, report with possible action on bilingual education, has been set aside at the request of Director Baez.
Do any board members wish to set any additional items aside? Not seeing any. Madam Secretary, what's the next step?
The approval of the balance of the reports.
Okay, can I get a motion on that? Director Phillips, do I have a second?
I second.
Director Baez seconded it. Okay. Any comments, questions? Not seeing any. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On the motion by Director Phillips, seconded by Director Baez, to approve the balance of the committee's reports. Director Baez?
Aye.
Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Peterson?
Aye.
Director Phillips?
Aye.
Director Simpson?
Aye.
Director Taylor?
Aye.
Director Woodward?
Aye.
President Miller?
Aye.
That's 9 ayes, the motion passes.
What's the next item, Madam Secretary?
We are now back to the items that were set aside. Item 2.
Madam Secretary, I
Yes.
would like to ask the board that we, since item 2 would require us to go into closed session, that we do item 7 and item 9 first, and then take up item 2, if that's acceptable to the board. Any objections? All right, let's proceed, Madam Secretary, with item 7 first.
Item 7 is action on the professional services contracts. That item has been set aside at the request of President Miller.
So I'm going to hand the gavel to Director Baez.
Director Miller?
So we had a discussion at committee for the interest of the full board. And our concern is that this is a private firm, and this is privatization, and many of us on this board are opposed to the concept in general, but at the same time, we have an issue of filling positions when there aren't adults in those positions, and it's something that's necessary. So in the spirit, I asked that the committee advance this to the full board without recommendation, and what I would like to do is make a motion to reduce this contract, which was proposed at $5,795,000, reduce it by $1 million to show that we are in the process of replacing this contracted work with our employees over time. That we can't meet that immediately, but over time, we're showing the sentiment and directing the administration that we like to do this over time. So my motion is to reduce the proposed administration contract by $1 million, which, for your information, was $5,795,000.
Comments by board members? We have a motion on the floor?
No, no second. Got to get a second.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I'm glad.
Yes, excuse me, just an objection. If we don't have a second, can't talk about it.
No, I asked.
Well, you gotta recognize the second. Okay, I'm sorry.
I thought Director had second that. So is Director?
I'm sorry.
Director Peterson second that. Okay. There's a second.
Thank you. I'm more than happy to support this, something I certainly was fighting for. We have to get our teachers back and as employees and reduce the privatization that has been going on for approximately the past 10 years. So thank you.
Other board members? Director Phillips?
Thank you, Chair Baez. I am in support of this motion, but I would want to ask the administration, should there be a need that surpasses what the board has allotted, what are the mechanisms to ensure that we have adults in front of children if there's a vacancy?
Administration?
President Miller, Director Phillips, Adrian Madeline, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. If we get close to the point, we'll monitor the spend that we reach the maximum dollar amount. We have the ability to come forward to the board with a change order to request an extension if necessary, and we can make sure that happens before funds run out, and we can make sure that there's no gap in services.
Thank you.
Vice President Baez, Director Phillips, Leah Scotter, Interim Chief Human Resources Officer, and just a reminder that aside from vacancies, the other majority use of this is for various leaves that people will take and also for just any daily sick calls that come in. So it's for absences and leaves aside from just vacancies.
Other board members? We got a motion on the floor, second by Director Peterson. How do we proceed? Call for the question then.
On the motion by Director Miller, seconded by Director Peterson, to approve the administration's recommendation, but to reduce the proposed contract with Goodwill Talent Bridge by $1 million. On the motion, Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Phillips.
Aye.
Director Seamson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
Director Miller.
Aye.
Chair Baez.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
I'm going to pass the gavel.
So noted.
Okay, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item would be item 9 of the report of the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel, report with possible action on Resolution 1920R-006 regarding the early retirement window, ERW. This item was set aside at the request of Director Seamson. Your committee recommends extending the early retirement window for 3 additional years.
Director Seamson.
At this time, I'd like to defer to President Miller.
So I'm going to pass the gavel again, I'm sorry. So what I would like to do is make a motion, and then After I make the motion, I would like to have Director Simpson respond to that, if I could, please. So my motion is to permanently extend the ERW benefits to those 600-plus employees that have earned eligibility in the current ERW, but not yet elected to participate. And so what this will do, in my opinion, is this will immediately and permanently stabilize our workforce. It allows staff and their families to decide when the time to retire is right, rather than the decision being made for them. It should reduce the unfunded actuary liability that is already on our balance sheets from the current ERW by letting staff retire later. This is going to be completely confirmed by actuarials, and it demonstrates a commitment to our district staff and demonstrates fiscal responsibility to stakeholders in the community. And it really does, in my opinion, those 600 people, we don't want them to retire. We want them to stay in our classrooms.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second to the motion?
And then,
Is there a second to the motion? So we can have a discussion.
I'll second it. I'll second.
A second? The motion has been seconded by Director Peterson. Director Simpson?
Yeah, it's right there.
I was going to add a friendly amendment, and that would just be that, the administration, in collaboration with the MTA, develop a plan to review and affix a permanent retirement age that allows the district to attract and retain staff, and to bring that back within the next budget cycle.
That's a friendly amendment, but I would add to meet with the other organizations, other unions
Yes. Yes.
to add to that, the MTA and other
Yes.
union representation. That would be
Simpson, do
friendly.
you accept the
I accept
change?
that, yes.
Okay.
Can we get clarity on this amendment as a whole before we go? Yes,
Copies
please.
coming my way.
Okay.
Director Bias?
Yes.
You calling on me?
Yeah.
I had asked Mr. Chasen to make some comments on this motion.
Excuse me 1 second. I know I have some other members on the queue, but can we have clarification from the Office of Accountability before we proceed? Is that okay?
That's what I was going to request.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Proceed, please.
Chair Baez, Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. So what's just been proposed in front of you, I think does the rare thing of balancing very effectively the many constraints that the board has in front of it with the current early retirement window. Our actuarial predictions, and I'll have Mr. Alex Rivera, who has joined us this evening, confirm this. The unfunded actuarial liability in our OPEB actually improves with this motion, as does our supplemental pension benefit for teachers. Both of those financial positions improve with this action. It also allows, to your point, and I've seen communications come to this board about the sort of forcing of individuals to have to make this decision prematurely. And with a permanent extension to those who have earned the eligibility in the current window, you allow them to get with their families and plan appropriately for what's right with them. If it's the pleasure of the chair, maybe I can have our actuary confirm what I just added as well for the benefit of the board and the public.
I would like to ask the administration to respond. So the actuary, please go ahead. Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Chair Baez, President Miller, and members of the board. And as Mr. Chasen mentioned, thank you. My name is Alex Rivera with Gabriel Roeder Smith. I apologize again. And as Mr. Chasen mentioned, this proposal, as far as having the current group of members that are eligible for the current early retirement window, if they do retire after the current cutoff date, which is June 30, 2020, that implies that benefits from the retiree health care program would effectively be delayed or paid later, although there is still health care costs with those members as an active employee as far as the actuarial liability that directly impacts the balance sheet liability of the financial statement. It would actually be a reduction in cost. with respect to the OPEB plan. Now, for the supplemental pension plans, for the director's plan, it's actually neutral because there's effectively a significant increase in benefits at age 60. So for the director's plan, it's more or less neutral. For the teacher's supplemental plan, the cost would be slightly lower. Again, another gain if the members were allowed to retire after the current cutoff date of June 30, 2020. So in my opinion, it would be favorable from a balance sheet perspective.
Thank you. I have other more members on the queue. Director Woodward, you still
I
want to?
had just wanted to hear.
You're fine? Okay. Director Phillips, before we get. You, Director Peters. I'm trying to go down the line. As I saw it.
Yes. Could we get a copy of the motion? I don't have one, at least here.
What I have is that the motion by Director Miller is to permanently extend the ERW benefits to those 600-plus employees that have earned eligibility in the current ERW but have not yet elected to participate, and to direct the administration, in collaboration with the MTEA and other bargaining units, to develop a plan to review and affix a permanent retirement age that allows the district to attract and retain staff, and bring back a plan within the next budget cycle that includes implementation by 2020-21.
The Phillips.
Thank you, Chair Baez. I want to thank the author of the motion for considering creative ways to look at our balance sheet while honoring our workforce, because I think that's really important. So I appreciate that with this motion. My one question is, how does this affect folks that have already elected to utilize their early retirement window? If those folks, are they not considered with this, and legally could they come back to work and then retire in 4 years or something like that? I want to understand what's the full possibility in this.
Phillips, who are you asking that they respond?
Physically, I'm looking at the Office of Accountability and Efficiency. I'm asking the question to whomever could potentially answer it. So my physical gaze is not reflective of who I'm asking the question to.
Office of Accountability or?
Chair Baez, Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. So to be sure, I think the last count was there were about a dozen members who had submitted papers for this current deadline for submission. I think probably we could get a commitment from administration that if those individuals had decided, based on this board action, they'd like to take those papers back, I think the administration would be willing to honor that.
Vice President Baez, members of the committee, yes, that it would be something that we could pull back on, those individuals.
Director Taylor?
Thank you, Chair Baez. I understand we have the 600 now, but it's going to come back to us for 2021. In that time frame or span, wouldn't the numbers increase of those who are eligible to retire, and what would happen with those individuals? Anybody who can answer it.
Office of Accountability?
Chair Baez, Matt Chasen, OAE. So the motion, as I've heard it read to me, is that it actually just applies to the individuals who have gained eligibility in the current window. And by allowing them to receive this benefit permanently, there is no cutoff date. It's upon which date they and their families decide is the best date for them to separate from the district. And so there's no sort of what we like to call the day of reckoning, where we have this final date by which anyone who had not previously elected to participate says, this is my last chance and I'm out the door. Now it's up until they could stay as late as they want. And so we no longer have that additional participation concern.
Director Taylor, follow-up?
Yep, a follow-up, and I understand. So this goes out for those who would initially have with 2020. Am I correct to say that?
Chair Baez, Matt Chasen, OAE, that's correct. The current window ends June 30th of 2020.
All right, great, last one. And so then we will come back before those that will be eligible for 2021 to have a definite plan in place. Is the what we're going for from the author of the motion.
Director Miller?
Yes, that was the friendly amendment that was put forward by Director Simpson, who was the original author of the motion. And so, it's to me, it progresses in an orderly fashion and will take everybody's interest. But it also, hopefully, will keep as close to 600 people in the classroom in the district, but, at this.
Thank you.
Director Phillips?
Thank you, Chair Baez. So I just want to clarify because last year, the year prior, the early retirement window was open, and we've had, I think, almost 200, perhaps a little over 200 people that had elected to retire with the understanding that this window was closing. And because of different state laws that are on the books, folks that might want to come back as an LTE are limited in their ability to actually come back and work at MPS. So my question around that is, if within the people that had retired with the understanding that this window was closing should want to come out of retirement, is that an option for folks? Or I just don't understand what the law is there, or how regularly that happens if people come out of retirement. And it could apply to anyone, I suppose.
Administration?
Vice President Baez, Director Phillips, members of the board, Leah Scotcher, Interim Chief Human Resources Office. We will double check with the City Attorney's Office, but once someone has already retired and started collecting their WRS benefits, those limitations would be in effect for them, and the district would not be able to waive those limitations that are in place by WRS.
Thank you.
Any other comments by the board? Then let's call for the question on the motion.
On the motion by President Miller, seconded by Director Peterson, to permanently extend the ERW benefit to those 600-plus employees that have earned eligibility in the current ERW but have not yet elected to participate, and to direct the administration, in collaboration with the MTEA and other bargaining units, to develop a plan to review and affix a permanent retirement age that allows the district to attract and retain staff, and to bring back a plan within the next budget cycle that includes implementation by 2020-2021. Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Phillips.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Taylor. Director Woodward. Director Miller.
Aye.
Chair Baez.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes, the motion passes.
Pass the gavel.
All right. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is the item 2 of the report of the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel. Action on recommended administrative appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, salary increases and decreases, limited term employment LTE contracts exceeding 60 days. This item was forwarded to the board without recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I will take a motion to go into closed session. Director Taylor is moving, if we could get a second, and Director O'Halloran is second in that motion.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, who made the motion?
Director Taylor. And Director O'Halloran seconded it. Any comments, questions? Not seeing any, please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
So this would be a motion to retire to executive session under the provisions of Wisconsin Statute, Chapter 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, which allows the governing body to go into closed session for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. The board may reconvene in open session to take action on matters considered in executive session, or to continue with the remainder of its agenda. On the motion as read, Director Baez?
Aye.
Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Peterson?
Aye.
Director Phillips? Director Simpson?
Aye.
Director Taylor? Director Woodward? President Miller?
Aye.
That's 9 ayes, the motion passed.
All right, in regard to item number 2, we will retire to executive session under the provisions of Wisconsin Statutes, Chapter 19.851C, which allows a governing body to go into closed session for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Would you please, Madam Secretary, note the time?
7:37.
Thank you. All right. This meeting will come back to order, please. Concerning item number 2, we do have there is a motion coming forward to the board. Director Baez.
Yes. Yes, on item number 2 of accountability, finance, and personnel, I move approval of the limited term employment contracts exceeding 60 days and the appointment of the Office of Board Governance at this point.
Do I have a second? Second, Director Taylor seconded it. Any comments? Not seeing any. Madam Secretary, please call the roll. On Director Baez and Director Taylor's second.
On Director Baez's motion, seconded by Director Taylor, to approve the LTE contracts exceeding 60 days and the appointment of the Office of Board Governance. Director Baez.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Phillips.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
President Miller.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, what is the next item?
The next item set aside is item 2 of the reports of the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation. This is a report with possible action on the bilingual education. This item has been set aside at the request of Director Baez. Your committee reports having given, coming from the administration, and this item is a report being forwarded to the board, and no action is required.
Director Baez, do you wish to make comments?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I want to appreciate and thank the administration. At the last SASE meeting, we were provided, for those of you that are not in SASE, you recall that the administration provided a report on progress that has been made on the implementation of the 214 resolution, the bilingual resolution, as we refer to it. At that point, can you pass that out? Yes, please, thank you. At that point, I also asked a number of other questions regarding an amendment that we, as a board, passed on May 30th, and that amendment had to do with strengthening the implementation of the bilingual resolution and strengthening the Department of Bilingual Education, adding more dollars to it, creating an initiative that had to do particularly with the use of $200,000 for tuition assistance for paraprofessionals, putting them in a path towards becoming bilingually certified teachers, money specifically designated for the CO biliteracy, and monies and funds specifically designated for parental development in the DMAC. Okay? Those of you that recall the resolution, it was very specific to what we had to do. At the last meeting, we received a report. I had some meetings subsequent to that with people that are observant of the situation, and they suggested certain kinds of things that I think require that we do have a specific report so that we can put it on the record, so that we can hold at the next SASE meeting, we can include a discussion of this matter so that people can then have the opportunity to come and speak to that issue if they want. So what I am proposing to do is, if the administration will please receive this request for a specific report on the implementation of the budgetary amendment for May 30th. I'm not at all quarreling with the rest of the report. I think that was a good report. You did well. I was very inspired by what I heard here today with the children from Allen Field. You know, I'm inspired by the fact that this district as a whole has really supported the idea of bilingualism for all. I just think that it's important for accountability purposes that we receive such a report and that we know specifically how this is being done, and I put together a list of the questions and issues that need to be included in such a report so that we all are able to hear that. So that's why I put this forward. It has been passed around, you have it, and my request is that there be a formal report to the board on this matter.
Madam Secretary, does there need to be a motion on this?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, this item does not require a motion. If I'm understanding Director Bias correctly, he is asking for information to be shared with the board via a report.
Correct. Yeah.
Dr. Posey, would you like to make comments, please?
President Miller, members of the committee, the administration will be more than happy to give a detailed, itemized report of how every dollar with this item has been spent at our next SASE meeting.
Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you.
Any other comments? Not seeing any. Madam Secretary?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Members of the board, if we are talking expenditures relative to the report, that information would come through the Accountability, Finance, and Personnel Committee relative to the expenditures to a budget amendment. However, the report could outline information relative to specifics in how the funding was allocated versus the dollar-for-dollar spend. That would be something that would need to come through the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel.
Director Bias. Oh, and Director Phil, then Holland.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Miller. I would be happy to hear dollar-for-dollar expenditure within the AFP committee, should that be something that Vice President Baez be interested in.
Thank you. Director Bias.
Absolutely, I will have no problem with that. I think that there is an academic component to this, and maybe it's something that we need to do in both committees. Do look at the financial aspects of this, but the academic aspects of this, particularly as it relates to issues of the seal by literacy and the issues related to the special initiative for the preparation of paraprofessionals, they seem to me to be academic matters that we need to resolve very soon, because we have a whole mess of people out there that are expecting some type of a resolution on this. I must say, in all candidness, that the level of distrust out there is concerning, because there are people that are saying, where are we going to go? What's going to happen with us? We don't know, okay? And so, yeah, we need to hear that. So I will be happy to deal with the budgetary aspects in AFP, and maybe we should do something or have an item on this related to the academic aspects of this in SASE.
Dr. Posey, would you be interested in dissecting this to academics and finance?
President Miller, members of the committee, in our last SASE meeting, we went through the academic piece of this item, and what we were not able to do was to go through the item analysis around finance. So I personally think that AF&P is the place that it belongs, but that's up to the board to decide that, because we have really met and worked through the nuances of the idea around all of the academic pieces of that. We laid that out earlier this week.
Follow-up?
Follow-up. Frankly, with all due respect, it was not to my satisfaction and the satisfaction of many people that observed this. But I will be happy to have the matter go before AFP, and I will be happy to appear as a guest in AFP if you are so allowed. Okay?
So what I would suggest is, and thank you, Director Phillips, for volunteering AF&P. As academic issues arise in that conversation, we can then bring them back to SASE at a different time if there's things that we need to answer and are not answered at AF&P. So thank you. Madam Secretary, any other comments by board members? Not seeing any. Madam Secretary, are there any items of regular business?
Yes, Mr. President. The next item of regular business is the monthly report of the president of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
It's late. I will submit it in the next 2 days. I apologize. I have been overwhelmed, and I will submit it. I've done a fair amount of things in the last period, so.
So noted.
Yes.
The next report is the report of the board's delegate to the District Advisory Council.
The District Advisory Council. Director Phillips.
Yes, so that report is before you. There was a lot of discussion this past month around different possibilities for transportation. So the parents were came with a lot of things to discuss. And once again, pretty inconclusive, other than big themes were, yes, we need stability, and it'd be very difficult to change start times because that's what we've already worked our schedules toward. And we understand that we don't have a lot of levers in terms of where we can find money. So, and then also with some of the stabilizing the workforce, of having less bus drivers for more routes versus more bus drivers for that. So it's a difficult discussion, and Mr. Solak-Fayaferik said that he would be welcome to come back again, since we were talking about not this next school year, FY21, but FY22. So the discussion's well in advance of any implementation. So normally there were reports before you, but I wanted to make sure that I talked through those things because I know that was something that came up on the board floor.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, any items of new business for referral to committee?
Yes, Mr. President, we have no items of new business for referral.
Any communications for referral?
We have no communications for referral.
Do we have any resolutions for
Yes, Mr.
referral?
President, we do have two resolutions. The first resolution for referral is Resolution 1920R-10 by Director Miller on a legislative task force.
This will be referred to the Committee on Legislation, Rules, and Policies. Madam Secretary, what's the next item?
The next resolution for referral is Resolution 1920R-11 by Directors Taylor and Simpson on a comprehensive mental health initiative.
This will be referred to the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation. Madam Secretary, what's the next item?
Mr. Chair, that was the last item of business on tonight's agenda.
There being no further business before this board, this meeting is adjourned.